A meeting took place to find a new president for the Hunters Association of Korea. They needed to choose someone to fill the empty position. Over 30 important leaders were in a large meeting room. This group included the vice president, the people in charge of all the different parts of the organization, and the heads of each department. Each leader had a lot of influence, similar to people in high positions in the government, or those who run big companies, but they all seemed worried. The room felt full of worry as they talked about what to do. We need to choose the next leader of the group. Finally, they got to the important part. People looked nervous after the vice president spoke. Some people even swallowed hard. It was time to decide the future of the Hunters Association. They all knew that, because the association controlled all the hunters in Korea, any problems with it could cause problems for the country. This was especially true because there were more new hunters and dangerous gates opening up. So the vice president, who was leading the meeting, closed the folder in front of him. He made it clear that what was written inside didn't matter as much as what he was about to say. After talking with the board, we suggest Director Jin-Chul Woo become the new president. This was the first time Jin-Chul had heard this idea. He quickly turned to look at the vice president, his face showing he was surprised and wondering why he was chosen. The vice president moved the microphone closer, and kept his gaze on Jin-Chul. Director Woo has a lot of helpful experience and understands things well, because he worked closely with President Go. He was also strong enough to be a leader for other hunters. This was true. President Go thought very highly of Jin-Chul, who chose to work for the association even though powerful groups wanted him to join them. Jin-Chul was a very strong A-rank hunter. If his magic power had been a little higher, he would have been the second separate hunter to join the association after President Go. He had 4 years of experience, and was one of the best A-rank hunters. People started talking when Jin-Chul's name was mentioned, but they stopped as the vice president explained why the board chose him. No one was a better choice to lead the group of hunters who worked for the association. Jin-Chul couldn't accept the nomination. He said, he didn't have everything needed to be a leader. Many hunters were more experienced than he was. He also thought he was too young for the job. Jin-Chul was in his 30s. He had learned a lot in the 4 years he worked with the surveillance team, but he still didn't think he was ready to lead the whole organization. That's what he believed anyway. Vice President, you and the members of the board are very important, and so are the other directors. Jin-Chul looked at each important person before speaking to the vice president again. How could you believe I am qualified to take the place of the previous president? With so many capable people present. The vice president turned his head and quietly sighed. He knew there would be disagreement, but he didn't expect Jin-Chul himself to object. The vice president turned off his microphone. He had already shared what the board of directors had decided, so now he would explain why they suggested Jin-Chul. Everyone listened closely. The vice president said, no one else, including me, has as much power with the most powerful hunters in Korea. A person from the Hunters Association of Korea. Everyone knew who the vice president meant. He has shown his strength in Korea, Japan, and the United States. It was already happening a little bit, but it's become clear that the Hunters Association will have trouble working well without him. A really powerful hunter could influence an entire country, but Jin Woo-sung had defeated one of those hunters. How much power did the Hunters Association really have over someone as strong as Jin Woo? They could only ask him nicely for help, and wait to see if he would agree. They needed someone who could talk to Jin Woo, the way President Go had, when he asked him to save the team on Jeju Island. Right now, Jin-Chul was the person in the association closest to Jin Woo. That was a good enough reason to make him the next president. When the vice president suggested Jin-Chul for the job, no one on the board could disagree with his idea. Everyone in the big meeting room began to agree with what he was saying. We cannot make you do what we want any more than we can make Hunter Sung do something. The vice president was very clear. The hunters were in control of the situation, but he asked them to please think carefully about their offer. After a short quiet moment, everyone looked at Jin-Chul. People were looking at him, and he carefully began to speak. Ah wow, Jin Woo said quickly. He had heard Gina say that a lot, but he never thought he would use the expression himself. His fingers moved fast on his phone as he read an article. Jin-Chul Woo named president of the Hunters Association, following the passing of President Gun Hee-go. Seeing Jin-Chul's name everywhere made Jin Woo afraid something terrible had happened, but when he read the good news, he breathed a long sigh of relief. To think that Jin-Chul Woo, someone he knew well, had become the president of the Hunters Association. He smiled, truly glad for Jin-Chul, and turned off his phone. He tossed it lightly over his shoulder. A soldier ant standing behind him just managed to catch it. The ant put the phone in a bag, then looked at him with a serious face. The person who had this job before you was much better at it. You have a lot to live up to. Jinho was busy with his work as second in command of their group, so this ant was chosen to carry the equipment instead. The ant looked down shyly. Okay. Jinwoo touched the ant soldier's shoulder and smiled. He turned around prepared to continue hunting after eating. But then he stopped. Oh no, not these again. Jinwoo rubbed his forehead when he saw the many trees in front of him, where a village had been destroyed by giants. Now there was a forest that looked like the Amazon rainforest. It wasn't necessary to be a skilled tracker to feel something was strange about the area. Surprisingly, animals didn't seem bothered by it at all. There were remains of animals that had been partially eaten scattered around. Jinwoo made a sound of disapproval at the flies buzzing around the animal bones. He then chose a rock from the ground and tossed it. Whiz. This wasn't a typical rock. It wasn't a stone thrown by just any strong hunter, but one thrown by Jinwoo Sung. A cracking sound echoed as the stone hit the face of one of the tree-like magical creatures. Its eyes opened wide. It looked angry as it stood up tall and ran toward Jinwoo. It roared loudly. Even plants could get upset when something hit them. Jinwoo created a magical dagger and quickly ran forward. The huge tree swung its branches at him. It was very slow. Jinwoo used its slowness to look closely at the tree's face while dodging the two branches that acted like fists. The tree couldn't keep up with Jinwoo's quick movements. It was very slow to react. Each time a branch hit the ground, it made a large dent. But Jinwoo wasn't impressed. He thought it wasn't very strong for how big it was. The tree monster looked powerful because of its size, but it didn't hit as hard as other large monsters. But the tree creatures had one big strength that helped make up for their weaknesses. Jinwoo held his knife tightly and stabbed the creature's body many times. It screamed loudly, but it didn't fall down easily. The knife cut into the tree quickly, like a burst of fast hits. The tree closed its eyes and swung its arms and legs around, trying to defend against Jinwoo's quick attacks. Jinwoo quickly moved away from the creatures. As he walked toward the tree, he put the dagger away and focused his energy into his fist. Jinwoo threw one punch. Crack. The tree bent over and flew backward. The magical creature screamed and struggled on the ground, but it still tried to reach Jinwoo with one hand. Wild tree-type magical creatures were very strong and hard to destroy. They were recently found in Japan and were very strong. This one finally stopped moving after Jinwoo hit it. Many times, with a final burst, the dead tree released a foul-smelling liquid. Oh, Jinwoo covered his nose. The terrible smell bothered Jinwoo more than how hard it was to fight. Jinwoo carefully took magical stones from the broken tree. He looked at the trees still standing. There were so many left to clear. It hadn't been long since the monsters came out, but they had already created a thick forest. Jinwoo looked worried as he thought about what was happening. But people are smart, and since he already knew what the enemy didn't like, Jinwoo had a plan. He knew this might happen, so he was prepared. Jinwoo happily called forth a few of his best helpers. Come on out. Team's remade soldiers stepped forward, as if they were waiting for the signal. He was glad he had kept these four with him while he sent the other soldiers to fight elsewhere. Begin. The mages and Fang, who had grown much larger, shot fire at Jinwoo's command. Whoosh. Boom. Crash. Boom. Crash. The trees caught fire and twisted as they burned. They seemed to cry out in pain. Screech. Yell. Roar. Even though the trees weren't completely dry, the magical fire quickly burned them down. The unpleasant smell of the sap quickly disappeared in the heat, letting Jinwoo watch everything happen from a safe distance. He smiled because everything was going as he expected. Messages kept appearing on his screen. You defeated an enemy. You defeated. Many notifications came one after another. The magical creatures reproduced very quickly, which was a problem, but it actually helped Jinwoo gain experience points. He heard the level up sound, and it seemed louder than usual. You have leveled up. That was exactly what Jinwoo wanted. He checked his stats to see how much stronger he had become. A window appeared showing his information. Ping. Name Jinwoo Sung level 113-3 Job Shadow Monarch Title Demon Hunter, and two others HP 78. 330 MP 30, 60 Fatigue 3 Stats Strength 3008 Stamina 3007 Agility 316 Intelligence 3040 16. Intelligence 31 to Reception 29 Available ability points 0. Jinwoo had reached level 13-3 quickly because his soldiers were handling battles all over Japan. Lots of magical creatures were coming through the gates, and that had been helpful. Most of his skills were now over 300 points, and his awareness skill was only 2 points away from that number. He decided he would focus all his effort on improving awareness after finishing tomorrow's task. Happy with his progress, Jinwoo closed the screen showing his skills. He still needed to think about the upcoming war the Giant King had warned about, and the big plan President Go had talked about, but worrying about them wouldn't help right now. He just needed to be prepared for what would happen next. Right now, his main goal was to get stronger. Baru, who was leading the ant army in a fight far away from Jinwoo, suddenly came to him. "My lord," she said. "If I may, I have a question for my king." Jinwoo wondered. What could this be about? Jinwoo was confused, so he sent a reply asking what was wrong. The message said they didn't have anyone else to ask for help, and that they could be contacted through the Hunters Association of Korea. After Jinwoo's interview was shown, the Hunters Association received many questions, mostly from the best hunters around the world. Several hunters even went to Korea secretly to ask Jinwoo for advice. Lennart Nierman, the strongest hunter from Germany, was one of them. They found a very powerful Silvernank hunter, and even someone who represented their whole country. "I don't stand a chance against people like that." He was a kind man, and noticed things easily. Lennart decided it was better to trust Jinwoo, and believe he had a plan to keep things safe, so he traveled to Korea. When Lennart arrived at Incheon Airport, he took a deep breath of the Korean air. This is what Korea smells like, he thought. He was excited to visit Asia for the first time and happily asked the person checking passports, "Is this where Jinwoo's son is from?" The officer looked confused and said, "I'm sorry." "Yes, Lennart," thought as the customs officer nodded. He smiled. Soon he would be able to talk to a very famous hunter. Lennart had almost met this hunter named Jinwoo at a big event before, so he was excited to meet him now. He took deep breaths to calm himself down. Suddenly the large man behind him became angry. "Move if you are slow," the man said. Lennart frowned immediately. How could this stranger be so impolite to such a skilled hunter? He took off his sunglasses to protect his eyes, and turned around ready to show this man some respect. "Excuse me, look at me when you speak and say that again." Lennart looked up at the man who was much taller than him. The man also took off his sunglasses. "I said move. Now." Lennart stopped quickly when he heard the voice, and then mumbled, "Please. You go ahead." Thomas Andre pushed Lennart to the side with his broad shoulders and walked to the front of the line, making Laura say she was sorry to the German hunter. The customs officer felt he couldn't breathe when he saw Thomas, a famous hunter known as the best in the world. He was so tall that people called him Goliath, and it was a perfect name. Thomas saw the officer's face lose color. He put his sunglasses back on and smiled. "Is this where Jinwoo's song is?" A voice spoke, sounding very respectful. "My king, if I may, I have a question for you." Baru, who was leading a large group of ant shadow soldiers far away from Jinwoo, suddenly contacted him. What could his strongest fighter have to say? Jinwoo sent a thought to him. Baru carefully asked, "If it's okay with you, could you send enemies my way?" He meant the magical creatures that had come into their world from special places called dungeons. Baru wanted to take care of the magical creatures on his own. Greed, who was a leader like Baru, couldn't meet Baru's gaze. This wasn't about the tiny ant creatures under Greed's command. Disagreeing with him, Jinwoo thought about what could be happening when he realized something. Could this be like when his body had changed before? The feeling grew stronger each time he defeated an enemy. Jinwoo was right. He was changing again. Changing into something new is like leveling up in a game. Baru had fought in many battles and faced more enemies than any other soldier since joining the Shadow Army. Now, the time had come for him to become even stronger. When soldiers like Igris and Iron leveled up, they became much more powerful. That was exciting news. Even before joining the army, Baru was strong enough to easily defeat very skilled hunters. Also, he was currently the highest ranking soldier among all of them. That meant I would find out what rank comes after general. Jinwoo was curious to see how this new rank would change things for Baru. He answered the worried ant. "Yes. Thank you, my king." I will give the ant soldiers back to you. Wait a moment. Jinwoo smiled, but Baru was too far away to see it. My soldiers, Jinwoo's army, now about 200 strong, quickly responded when he called them. Igris led the knights, Fang led the strong orcs, Jima led the nagas, number 6 led the giants, Tank led the ice bears, and Greed led the rest of the soldiers. With all of his army focused on him, it felt like he could hear them all shout. The air felt thick with tension. Jinwoo actually enjoyed it as he gave his order. Everyone, retreat. Come back to me. The shadow army started moving immediately. Soldiers turned back into shadows, and quickly came from all over Japan to gather around Jinwoo's feet. My king, why did you call us all back? Jinwoo smiled at the surprised ant. You and I will take care of the remaining monsters together. That was the best way to help Baru improve quickly. Some gamers had a trick called power leveling. It's when a really good player helps someone who is just starting out get better quickly. Jinwoo was planning something similar with Baru. He wanted to fight alongside her to help her gain experience points faster. With all the dungeons opening up, it would be easy to help Baru level up if they hunted together. It would take more time than sending hidden soldiers to those places, but Baru was the most important thing right now. My king. Baru was so moved. He couldn't finish speaking. Jinwoo lifted his eyebrow. Baru had been getting better at showing his feelings, probably because he'd been watching a lot of TV shows while guarding his mother and sister. Once all the hidden soldiers arrived, Jinwoo asked, "Does anyone else know when my level is about to increase?" No one answered, as expected. Becoming stronger was already hard, but a soldier needed to be aware enough to even notice it happening. Jinwoo thought Baru was the only one who could tell him when he was leveling up, or getting more powerful. But then whoosh, another shadow soldier appeared, joining the others. This meant Baru wouldn't get to hunt with his master by himself after all. Baru seemed a little sad, but Jinwoo was very happy. Great. Igris bowed to Jinwoo as he always did. Jinwoo sometimes felt a little strange about how formal Igris was, but it had been a while, and he was glad to see it again. Jinwoo had also been waiting for Igris to get stronger. Then let's start. He smiled and created a demon monarch's dagger. Little plants were already growing from where they had burned down the tree, like magical creatures. The monsters appeared very quickly, and in large numbers. It was scary. There were 40 more dangerous areas to deal with, after this one. Jinyo, Hana, and Taeyong needed to work fast, if they wanted to handle everything. Jinyo felt comfortable, at the Ajin Guild headquarters, almost more so than at his own house. But right now, every minute felt incredibly long. Jinyo looked at the clock on the wall. It was 4:10 in the afternoon, and more than 2 hours had passed since the man arrived. Jinyo felt nervous and swallowed hard. He quickly glanced at the visitor, worried he'd made a sound. Their eyes met, and the man smiled at him from behind his sunglasses. Jinyo tried to smile back, even though his face felt stiff, and then quickly looked away. He started to feel very nervous and tried calling his boss again, but he couldn't reach him. Ring. It had been 2 days since Jinyo last heard from Jinwoo, and he didn't expect to hear anything soon. He stayed quiet, and the good people who worked for the Ajin Guild, because they believed in it, did the same. A strange quiet fell over the room, and they all seemed to agree to stay silent. It's easy to understand why anyone would feel that way in a situation like this. The man sitting in the corner was known as both one of the best hunters in the world, and someone who got angry very easily. Thomas Andre had seriously injured someone and sent them to the hospital. Everyone was afraid to talk, or even smile when he was around. The best hunter in the world came to the Ajin Guild to see Jinwoo. Vice President Jinho and the other guild members were very upset. Jinho was thinking about calling Jinwoo again, when the office doors opened automatically. Everyone looked to see who was coming in. Jinho's eyes grew wide with surprise. He jumped up from his chair and spoke quickly, showing how worried everyone else was. "Boss." It made sense so many reporters were outside the building. Jinwoo looked at Thomas Andre, who was smiling. Thomas didn't seem angry with Jinwoo at all. So why had he traveled so far? Jinyo stopped Jinwoo before Thomas could speak. "Boss, why was it difficult to get in touch with you? I was quite occupied. Now that you mention it, your clothing." Jinyo trailed off. Jinwoo's clothes showed signs of many fights he had been in. Looking at the scene, Jinho remembered all their brave adventures. If the leader had been so busy hunting for the last 2 days that he didn't call, then how many magical creatures had been defeated? Just thinking about it made Jinho feel uneasy. Right then, Thomas stood up and walked calmly toward Jinwoo. He was very tall and quickly closed the space between them, stopping right in front of the hunter from Korea. Oh no, would they start fighting here? The people who worked at the guild held their breath, worried about what would happen between their boss and Thomas. Their hearts were beating so fast that Jinwoo's ears felt like they were ringing. Mr. Sung, Thomas said, offering his hand. Jinwoo shook it and smiled back. Thomas's smile disappeared quickly, because he realized something was different. He wondered how Jinwoo had changed. He noticed a change, though it was hard to pinpoint. This man wasn't quite the same one he'd met earlier. Maybe it was how he acted. Jinwoo's clothes were definitely more untidy than when they first met, or at the party later. But even with the change in how he looked, Thomas sensed a strength coming from Jinwoo, a solid confidence that he'd seen before. But it felt stronger now. Could this really be happening? No, it couldn't be.